What is new product development? Now, it's a process, and it's a process that requires sort of a funnel of ideas. And by the end, you've come up with a concept for a new product or service. So it could be a product, it could be a physical product, it could be a service. It's an idea, though, that you have honed down from a lot of ideas, and that you have generated these ideas, you've screened them out, and we're going to go through all that process to do that. You do a business analysis, you develop the idea further, you do some test marketing, and then you commercialize the product, and then you're ready to go. So this is just a pictorial look at the process that we're going to take you through in 6 weeks. It can be intense. You may feel a little bit overwhelmed at times, but the idea is to hone your idea and not try to do too many things at once. We want one single idea, and then we'll work through this process to get you where you need to go. Now, another way to look at this is, everybody kind of has a different way of looking at things. And when I was looking at new product development in the business world, it's the same thing, but just a different picture. I like the funnel because really you are honing down your idea and you're working at it and making it a logical process. And of course, there are so many ways to look at this. One thing we are going to talk about a bit is emerging trends. Now, a year ago, we did not have some of the trends that have come about during COVID. If you're interested in food development or local food, that has opened up even more locally and across the country. So we will talk about trends. There is a resource for homework to read about the 2020 trends. That was developed in early 2020. So some of the trends that you are seeing now may not be in there, but trends are very important, and it is trends are something that you really need to look at. And we are going to talk about some case studies that we think people learn a lot about with, just recent case studies that might help you do some of this. But anyway, you do have to observe the real world. You can do a lot of reading, but you also have to talk to people. And doing that consumer research will lead you into some ideas, and it may change or tweak the way you're looking at your product. And then this concept development it shows it as a circle here, because what happens is, as you get going, you're probably going to change some of what you initially thought about, and refining this process, and then finally implementing it. So it is a process, and it's not something that you just in 5 minutes you come up with. So this is just preparing you for, some of the best things that have come out don't really look like what they started as. So what is your idea? Start with the end in mind. And I'm going to turn this over to Jim.
So hello folks, and if you can't hear me, let me know. I'll move closer to the microphone. So starting with the end in mind, is it a specific idea that you have that you want to do, or is it just generally a goal, a change in your current situation? You want to change your lifestyle, need to, change, improve profitability. Is it a need or a want? I kind of lay that out. Is it bread, which everyone needs, or is it jelly, which is kind of like, you'd like to have it, but don't necessarily need to have it. And where are your customers? Is it location or is it demographics? Do you need to travel to them? Will they come to you? Are they, what can they afford to purchase? And why do they want to buy it? And then we're going to need to look at, the resources that we have on hand or that you can acquire, both physical and personal. And, are you looking at a change in production, which is going to use up resources? If you're producing a crop or producing a product, you're constantly putting resources in and taking them out. Or is it a service? If you're selling, a farm stay or a wedding venue, your resources stay there. You sold your setting, your wedding venue, to this group. Then when they leave, you still have those resources. So it's just the difference of what you're really selling as the service, not the product. Okay, it's all a lot of work, but we need to go through that work. So again, question is, so need versus demand. And it's a little nuanced, but, say, there's a need for kosher products. But if depending on where you're living, there could be very little demand, very few people actually demanding that product. So you can identify a need, something that doesn't exist in the marketplace. But, what is the demand? And you also need to be wary of things like, a lot of industrial marijuana was planted for CBD production because, there's a lot of hype demand for CBD oil products. But as it turned out, at the end of that very first year, many folks who went through the year of production were just sitting on their crop because there was no place to actually market it. Some growers had contracts, they had a market all set up ahead of time, so they producing for a specific buyer, which is the ideal way, in that instance to approach it. But a lot of folks who, they got into this thinking there was going to be a lot of demand, one of these silver bullet products, kind of like hops were a number of years ago, and as it turns out, it's not that successful. Now you need a good logical business plan that you can move forward, present to the banks. You need to be very objective. Don't let your desire to create this specific product drive your assessment of that, of that product, of what the demand might be. And now you're not always going to have all the objective information. It may not just be available. And the reality is there's always some intuition involved in any new business startup. You have a kind of a feeling or a notion that there's going to be demand for this, or this is something that you can really sell, and you're pretty sure you have a market for it. It may not be any way to really quantify that, but what you really need is a logical explanation of what you intend to do, how you intend to market it, how you intend to produce it, the whole process, to take to the bank if you need a loan, or just to make sure, financing it and doing this on yourself, that you've thought through the whole process in a logical fashion to make sure you're going to achieve what you want. So, there's always, in entrepreneurship and new business, there's some intuition involved there, but you still need a logical step-by-step process of how you're going to get there. Make sure you fill in all the blanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of work, and we are hopefully going to provide you with all the tools that you need But remember, not just after the class, but during the class, you can come to us and say, I can't find whatever, or I need help doing whatever. So we're here during the week to help you put together this solid plan. Now, I know this is a little bit hard to read in your book, but what's happened in the last couple years, maybe several years, is current trends that we can get our minds around, revolving around lower consumer confidence, perhaps in some segments of the economy. Even before now, people were purchasing things online more and more. And if you have a product that is shippable, that may be fulfilling some of this trend of people so busy that they don't want to go to bricks and mortar stores, and they would like to order things online. There is a continued growth in the health wellness area, especially with food and local food. And so that might be something that you might want to think about if your idea revolves around food. There's a lot more going on at the dollar store and discount grocery chain channels. Dollar stores have been prolific in this area. So sometimes, I mean, you just kind of think about all these trends. It may not apply to your product, but if it's something that somebody can get in a dollar store, you might want to move away from that mass marketing idea. There are increased influence on digital and of digital on in-store purchases. So I think that means like you can get online and order anything. You can go to a store and get practically anything. So these direct-to-consumer delivery, convenience, it's all kind of been happening in the last few years, but then recently this is kind of accentuated and gotten more concentrated. People did want to stay in their homes. They wanted to order their food online. They wanted to stay safe. So in thinking of those trends, even though we hope this COVID doesn't go on forever, a lot of people have made quite a bit of money starting up some interesting businesses that fulfill this need, at least now. And even if COVID goes away, I don't know if the worry or the concept will ever go away. But it's just something to think about as we move forward. So I just put this in here because there are some things in your notebook. If you are doing a food product, it's easy to find information online on food trends to consider. So as we know also, the cideries and the breweries and things like that have been booming up till now, and hopefully will still continue to boom. But it's these food trends. If I've noticed that quite a few people are interested in foods, read and learn what is going on in the food industry. Another,
Marianne,
yeah.
question. Can one of you chat those links into the chat function so then we could click on them as we
Sure.
go along? Thank you.
Who would like to do that?
I can do that,
Marianne.
or
Okay.
either one of us.
Okay, that'd be good because If you don't have your notebook yet, or I know it's just, some of these links are just so long. But another one is current trends, what's happened since March. We talked about that. New York State has wanted to help local markets provide access to local food to bridge the gap during this time. Also, consumers are baking again and shopping locally. I mean, who could find flour, you know? And even some places it's still shortages of yeast and things. People are thinking about back to basics. You know, what can I live without if they've lost their jobs, or if they're concerned about losing their jobs, or if they have moved to the country from downstate. Food and product delivery, I will be talking about the 607 CSA as an example. And then reading the 2020 report. Now, even if you're not doing food, what's happened locally may affect the service that you might be thinking of providing. All these people are coming to the country. There are things that they are used to that they're not getting here. So filling that void can be a very successful venture. And I'm not saying, you also have to consider, well, what happens when COVID goes away? Well, people develop habits. And if they're happy with food delivery and other kinds of things that they've adopted during COVID, they may stay with that kind of experience, or that's where they're going to put their dollars.
Marianne, I just wanted, you just kind of made me think of something.
Mm-hmm.
So that actual model of a food delivery service that's new to folks now,
Mm-hmm.
it really is an opportunity to build a customer base that wasn't there before, if they're happy with the service and the product they get. So this is your chance now, if you're going to do that, to do a really good job, and you can develop a customer base that will stay there.
Do we have any questions at this point?
Do you mind talking about your understanding of kind of what this Intuit report?
The Intuit report?
And how like important people sees, or how widely they gather information, or you're just a general understanding of this company or organization?
Okay.
Looking at reports.
Well, when I was looking up trends, the Intuit report, I believe, is published every year. And it is a company that researches consumer trends. And it was developed, it's developed, you know, and released at the beginning of every year. And if you have a notebook, it's in there. And I can't really tell you much about how they go about it. But once you read the report, you'll have a better idea of what they consider to be the trends that that are affecting what consumers buy. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
So I'm going to stop sharing these slides, and what we hope to do is randomly put you into breakout rooms. First, we'll tell you what we want to do, and then we'll put you in the rooms. So we want you to go into a room, and we're going to give you 15 minutes to discuss with others and try to just go round robin and spend a minute on your concept if you'd like to share, and just get a little feeling for what other people are thinking about with your product. Like, we will have a much more in-depth critique later on, and actually at the next session we are going to ask you to share. But for now, you may have a big concept of your product or service, and we just like to have some interaction between the folks on the program to So they get to know maybe some of the other folks or just talk about their idea. So if everybody could just, I'll put in the breakout rooms. We have 29 participants. So if I make 6 breakout rooms, you will probably have, you know, around 4 or 5 people in each room. Just talk about maybe your product and maybe somebody else might have some ideas, just as a part of kind of an icebreaker for today. So we're going to take about, it's 9:40. We will come back at 5 till 10, and hopefully with some reporting back. There doesn't need to be a chair or anything, but just try to take turns talking about your product. So enjoy your breakout session. We'll be back in 15 minutes. So we're back. And before we go to break, I'm going to go over just a case study to consider before we go to break. So I'll get back into my PowerPoint. Okay, I am going to talk about a food ordering system. And it was really interesting to watch this evolve. It was March, it was mid-March, and there was a fledgling 607 CSA that started maybe the year before, and they had just got the idea going. They were working locally, and they had an idea as the area shut down that people needed to eat. They knew all the farmers, that was their resource, was the farmers and their knowledge that they had a lot of food to sell. So they wanted to serve this need locally in Delaware and Otsego counties. They knew at that point that people would pay for delivery. And they knew that the clientele basically had money for local food, and they did not want to go to the grocery store or limit their trips to the store. So the first thing they did was they put out a request for food from local farmers. And they developed a platform for online ordering. And I have to say that they did this very quickly because they knew that they had this limited time to get this up and running or someone else would. And they worked night and day because I was involved with them. I could see, you know, how fast this was happening. And of course, mistakes were made, you know, things didn't really go that smoothly. They had bugs to work out with this online ordering platform, but they made it work and they corrected mistakes and they delivered food in Otsego and Delaware counties. Farmers and bakers rose to the occasion. And in June, they expanded into the city metro area. And tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, they don't even have time to spend the money, really. They just are so busy. And I don't think it's really, I think it's let up a little bit, but during, I would say April, May, and June, they could hardly keep up with the deliveries. So they did capitalize on this during COVID, but they were meeting a need. And these were staple items and fresh items and baked goods. And so they tried to make sure that people had what they wanted. Lots of meat and lots of product, lots of dairy. So the seasonal people were coming here also. And they historically have been the ones that support our local markets. I see I'm fading a little. And the consumers wanted to buy local, and they were used to shopping at farmers markets. So this CSA was not something that they couldn't do. So the resources that the CSA people already had, it doesn't have to be a physical resource. Their resources were contacts, staging areas, knowledge of local products. These are the kinds of things that they already had that they could expand on. Timing was everything. The opportunity window was short. They wanted to get in there, which they did. And everything was online. You know, it was very safe. They had all these protocols set up. When they showed up at your house, everything was paid for. There was no contact. And they certainly let everyone know what they were doing to keep the products safe. And they worked on a reasonable markup. I thought the markup, I think, was 30%. But it's just an example of how somebody could, or a group, this was a group of people. This was not one or two people. It was in the beginning, but they had to hire personnel. So they got people who were good with starting up the process and doing inventory, and everything is really computerized. So it seemed to work out, but that was just a case study that I wanted to bring out, and maybe some of you have heard of it. Just something to think about as you're honing the idea. And I hope that the breakout session that you had was valuable, that, you know, people could discuss. Sometimes when you talk about it, you know, it makes it more real. So we are going to take, as I promised, a 10-minute break. We will come back at 10:15, and we will start talking about the business plan. And if you do have a binder or a notebook that was sent to you, you can pull out your business plan and just get a look at it when we get started again. Okay, the first question, we're just going to address some of these questions in the group chat. Do you have a list of industries that New York State supports? Now, I would have to say that once we get further into the program, you will find that Empire State Development, if you get on Empire State Development, the website, and there is a bit about it in your notebook, but my own opinion is that New York State supports new businesses, growing businesses, and your local IDAs receive funding from New York State. So, for instance, in our county, here in Delaware County, I can work with someone who wants to start up a business, whether it's a farm business or a conventional business or a Main Street store, and refer them to Delaware County Economic Development. And that group receives funding through New York State. And there have been quite a few matching grants and loans that have gone out to local businesses to buy machinery, to buy some kind of input, to do websites, to do marketing. Well, anyway, their funding is based on employment. So if you commit to hiring a person, some of that loan can be forgiven. So indirectly, that is through the state's funding of the IDAs. Now, on the Empire State Development website, they will lead you through, and we are going to go over it in a later session, all the things that you might need to do as a new business. If you have to develop an LLC, if you need to develop a name or a patent or some kind of a other business type of organization. It leads you through the process. And this whole Empire State Development website was developed to encourage entrepreneurship in the form of new and expanding businesses. So I guess I would say that New York State supports new and expanding businesses by providing those resources. When we get into food and ag and markets and all the things that ag and markets does to help food entrepreneurs through inspection services and licensing, things like that, that's also funded certainly by the state government. I would encourage you to visit with your local economic development in your counties and find out what the programs are and what the IDA can do for you. Oh, do we have to officially report if our idea has already changed? This is the purpose of the class, is to hone your ideas. And if something has happened to make you change your mind, or if you were thinking about trends, I think that all by itself, the class is paid for itself. So anyway, even if you decide in the end that you are not going to start this business because you did the projection and you won't make any money at it, that is also a success. We consider that a success. But you know, once you go through this process, you can do it for multiple things. Will there be a way to connect with everyone in this class as far as network and sharing go? Yes. Next Tuesday, we are going to meet in the beginning for anyone who wants to make a 3-minute presentation and pitch their idea. We didn't do it today, but we will spend, you know, a portion of the first part of the next class with people who just want to pitch their idea and look for some critique so they can either hone it down or just get some feedback. And we hope this continues with the interaction. I do want to say that last year we had this class in person and we had a room full of people that shared all these ideas and they were friends at the end. So that's the fun part of classes like this. So we want to make it, even with a Zoom, that you get to share your ideas. If there is a way to, I would probably have to get consent from you to share your email addresses. If you don't want to do that, just let me know at some point, because not everybody wants to share their email addresses with a group. But if you do, or you can also chat with somebody individually and do that on the chat. It really is up to you.